figure out how to reach them and engage with them, you're going to have a very difficult time penetrating. Let me explain that I think something that kind of makes sense to this industry. My friend just bought a $4.1 million apartment in Manhattan through Twitter, right? He tweeted out that he's like thinking about moving. That was it. That was his tweet. Thinking about moving. 3 very progressive real estate agents in New York engaged him. He met with all 3 of them face to face, because if you leave with anything from me today, I want you to, I see a lot of you writing and tweeting, and some of you are checking your email on your phone, but otherwise, the far majority of you are writing and checking and making notes. Here's what I want you to remember. This is the only thing. Social media is a gateway drug to selling things. That's what it is. Social media is a path to then what you normally do. See, I'm like you guys. I want to meet people face to face. I'm a salesman. I can close a hell of a lot better face to face than anything else. The problem is getting to face today is very difficult, but not if you understand where people are actually spending their time. And so social media is the gateway drug. He tweeted something very simple that said, thinking about moving, 3 progressive sales agents in the real estate industry saw it, all tweeted at him. He met with all 3 of them. One of them got the business, and a week later made the commission on a $4.3 million home sale. I think this is being replicated over and over. The far majority of the business my wine retail company is doing right now with new customers happens from what we call Twitter phishing. You gotta understand, Twitter has a substantial advantage over any other platform. It is the one place that you can jump into a conversation that you're not a part of, and it's looked upon as a good thing, not a bad thing. You know, if I show up on your Facebook wall right now and say, hey, how'd you like my keynote? And you know that you didn't friend me, you think I'm a creeper. But on Facebook, but on Twitter, if I do that, which I'm going to do when I drive away now, I'm going to look at all of you that tweeted any of my things with the hashtag, I'm going to say thank you. And you're going to say, wow, you put in the effort to actually engage. It's a totally different dynamic. So please understand the power of Twitter is that it's a cocktail party. And for all the people that understand how to play in a cocktail party, you're going to have tremendous success. It's the reason so many of you in your career joined the PTA and the Chamber of Commerce and all the other things you did, bless you, and all the other things you did to actually get context with everybody else. You know, it's funny. There was an insurance company that spoke yesterday about what they do on Twitter because I was following the hashtag, and then I jumped and kind of audited the account. This is not a negative. I'm not looking to pick on anybody. But the far majority, 98% of it was pushing out stuff, right? And every 4th one was retweet this and answer this, which is completely in benefit to them. They're saying, hey, distribute my stuff to your friends to build awareness for me before you're even talking to them. And so I'm writing a new book that comes out in November called Jab, 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 Right Hook. It's my complete philosophy on how social media works. The subtitle is How to Tell Your Story in a Social Noisy World. Here's what it comes down to. You have to give before you get. So the far majority of the insurance companies that I audited before this talk on their Facebook and Twitter accounts are just pushing. They're pushing their offers, and they're asking for things in return without giving. For me, the reason I've been able to build such an audience is the far majority of what I'm trying to do is bring value before I go in for the ask. The funny thing is this book right here, The Thank You Economy, I could have called that book Jab, 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 Jab. What I learned over the last 3 years of watching people implement what I do here is something that I think a lot of us in this room are actually good at. Most people that follow what that book taught are actually scared to go in for the ask. They're scared to go in for the ask of a sale. I'm not. You know, as somebody who's looked upon so positively in the social media sphere, I'm a really hardcore salesman in comparison to all the contemporaries that people adore. Because I'm not Zen. I'm not hippie. I want money, right? And so, but what I realized is this. The best way, and so many of you know this, right? What's so ironic about all of this is many of you have built very strong, substantially successful businesses through the years, doing all this stuff that I talk about and I believe in. The difference is, it's now scalable because I used to have to do it with clothes on too, but now I do it with my underpants at 4 in the morning, right? And we have to think about that. That's a very solid statement. The scalability of engaging with people and creating context, which is what then allows you to push out content, is far more scalable on social than it was in the real world. You had to go to the Chamber of Commerce event at 7:30, and those 30 people there were there, and you had to miss something else. Now you can sit in front of a computer, and there's thousands of conversations going on, and the amount of people that I can create context with before I try to push my agenda is extraordinary. Let me paint you another very awkward picture because I'm trying to bring as much value this morning as possible. This is where I think you need to be in content for you to be successful. And this is going to be a complete brain twist. So have a sip of water because I'm going there. You ready? How many people in this room know that the Guinness Book of World Records was started by Guinness beer? Raise your hand. Wow. So the 11 of you are better men and women than I was. I didn't know that until 9 months ago. Even though I grew up in the liquor business my whole life. Here's why Guinness created the book. They wanted to be in the media business to fix their business problem. They had pub sales that were down. They wanted to figure out what's going on. They did old school 50-year-old ago consumer research, and they found out the two things people talked about in pubs were soccer and trivia. So they basically started a trivia book. And they gave it to all the bartenders, and they built up their brand awareness, and it helped them sell beer. How many people here are familiar with BuzzFeed.com? Raise your hand. Nice. BuzzFeed.com is only a couple years old. It's now the 300th biggest website on the internet, right? A lot of people make fun of it because most of the articles are 13 best ways to dress on Thursday, right? Or 11 ways Kim Kardashian's ass is the size of Saturn, right? Things like that. You know, silly things like that, right? But what they figured out is what people actually want to hear and what people actually talk about, right? And if you pay attention to what's going on in BuzzFeed, there's only one thing I want to lead you to. They don't have any banner ads, and they don't have any pre-rolls. All of their monetizing for the site is done through something called native ads. For anybody that don't know what that internet term is, it's basically advertorial 2.0, right? Newspaper advertorial, right? You get the newspaper, there's a section, clearly it was at the top, they say advertorial, it was brought to you by something, but it's content. I actually believe that, and what I'm about to say, I firmly believe that only one person in this room is going to do. Because what I'm about to say is very hard. And it's something I actually don't think you're going to do. But I do think one person will, which is why I decided to put it into my speech. And then whoever you are in the audience that does this, please email me at gary@vaynermedia.com in 2 years, because I really want to celebrate with you over email. Here's what I think is the biggest opportunity in your market. Guinness created a trivia book to solve a business problem. The Michelin Tire Company, right, 100 years ago, started a guide to restaurants in Europe because people weren't driving enough yet, and they were driving too much in their local area, and they weren't using up their tires, thus not allowing them to actually sell you more tires. So what they did was they went to the countryside and started reviewing the best restaurants and putting the books in Paris and London and the big cities, which then dragged people to drive 2 to 3 hours to use up their tires. They solved their business problem by being a media company. I actually believe that the biggest way for you to break through in content is for you not to talk about what you actually do. What you actually do is not that interesting. What you actually do is something most consumers don't want to know about, right? It's a one-time event many times. You'll do your best to follow up through their career, but it's not interesting enough to the normal consumer. But what may be interesting is, what if I debated with you that I feel somebody in this room is on the cusp of being the new local paper to the business area that they actually tried to go after? How many people here are in areas where high school football is a big deal? Raise your hand. So you're the ones that are most interesting to me. I would tell you that if you started a blog around the high school football team and did a good job at it, and actually hired some of the kids from the high school to guest blog, kind of like HuffPo, right? If you know what the Huffington Post model is they don't pay their writers outside of lunch, they get the best, people on the platforms, they're going to give them exposure. What if I told you that if I was in your business, the reason I think I could beat all of you in it is because I go into my town and I become a media company about what's relevant to the citizens of that town, and then I would pump out 6 to 7 articles a week about the high school football team, and the eighth article would look similar to BuzzFeed, which would be a commercial for what I actually do for a living, which is sell insurance. I actually think this rogue approach of you trying to think about what is important to the target audience that you're trying to reach in a local market is an enormously fertile ground to compete against. There are people within your organization that have super interest in creating content that is localized, and that I believe the far majority of local media companies are still doing C to D to E to F work. And if God forbid you could match them and even get to a C or B level, that audience would become your gateway. What if I told you that all the places that you spend your money on today, advertising-wise, we're better off if you became those places? That in Nike, for example, at the highest level, that I believe Nike, instead of buying ads on ESPN, is eventually going to be a major competitor of ESPN. That I believe every person in this room and every organization in this room is in the media business, and they just don't realize it yet. That's where I think we are. We are in a world right now that if you do not know how to create content that is relevant to the people that you're trying to reach, you are becoming very, very irrelevant very, very quickly. Because traditional sales and traditional advertising is becoming an annoyance, just like a phone call. And all the data shows it. Email marketing. How many people here have done email marketing in their career? Raise your hands high. Great. This is going to be fun. I built my library on email marketing. To give you guys context, if you're really nerdy about it, in 1999, I had 87% open rates on my email service. Right?
Wow.
How many people in this room signed up for Living Social, Groupon, Daily Candy, those deal of the day things? Raise your hand. Just curious? Awesome. Do you remember 3-4 years ago when you first signed up for Groupon, how you couldn't wait to get $40 worth of sushi for $20? Okay. How it was the best day of your life when you got an $80 spa treatment for $40? What happened? Here's what happened. The one thing I know in the world is that marketers and salespeople ruin everything. That's what we do, right? I'm a proud one. I try to see a new platform, I try to squeeze it and ruin it as quickly as possible. It's what we do. And so what happened was those marketers ruined it. You signed up, all of you, almost all of you signed up for it. How many of you now check it regularly? Raise your hand. 3. So all of you signed up for it, but only 2 or 3 years later, only 3 of you are still finding value in it. You know why? They started giving you stuff you didn't want. They started offering you things you didn't want. And now you don't care if Groupon's offering you $1 million home for $100. You're like, delete, spam, get out of here, unsubscribe. And that's what happens. Email open rates have collapsed in the last 24 months because too many marketers got involved and pounded it. And now it's harder to tell your story in email. Google AdWords. Google AdWords, a holy grail of marketing that converts. AdWords click-throughs this year are down 15%. Google reports that AdWords click-throughs are down 15%. You know why? We got used to them, and they stopped bringing us value. Another thing happened. I used to go to Google for everything. When I wanted to go to a nice restaurant, I went to Google. Now when I want to go to a new restaurant, for example, I'm spending some time in Connecticut with my family now. I wanted to go to a nice restaurant. I went to Twitter and tweeted, what are the good restaurants in Connecticut? Because the people that I actually have a relationship with, which all of you know, have you guys ever heard of word of mouth? Is that what in your world, right? You know, is that how we convert trust in others? Social media is the plumbing for word of mouth. That's what it is. That's all it is. And so now, when I want to go to that restaurant, I tweet, anybody have any good restaurants in Connecticut? And I get answers from people I trust instead of somebody that was good at SEO. And so I implore you to do 2 things. 1, listen more than you talk. The atrocity of social media work that is being done in this room is pretty severe. Everybody's pushing. I looked at all the accounts. Everybody's pushing. Check out our stuff, retweet this, fill in the blank, all tactics. Tactics that are very cheap and have no real emotion behind them. We need to figure out how to listen more. We need to provide more value. Who here is willing to step up and do a video show every day for 3 minutes and actually educate America about the insurance industry and the things you do so that they don't go into the things that are bad? You know what I did? I made a real big decision. You know why my show worked? Because I panned 71% of the wines that I put on Wine Library TV. Oh, by the way, I sold all of them. I sat in front of a camera and told hundreds of thousands of people that a wine that I had cases of in my store was a piece of crap. And you know what that did? That built trust. That built actual relationship. And so in a world now where information is transparent and it's impossible to hide and the consumer's far more educated, I would assume some of the people that have been in the industry for more than 15 years, you guys have to, educate me on this with show of hands or head nods. The consumer's more educated because there's information online that they didn't have 20 or 30 years ago. I wasn't going to the library and figure out how to buy life insurance, but now I can do one little quick Google search and at least educate myself and ask questions and things of that nature. And so we're living in a different time. We're living in such a different time. And we're going to be living in a world where our reputation matters, right? If you're not thinking about, here's one thing I'd like you to think about, because I saw a lot of your accounts personally outside of the corporate accounts. The number one thing I think about every single day is that every tweet, every Facebook post, every LinkedIn article I write, my great-great-grandchildren are going to read. That we are the patriarchs and matriarchs of our families. That every piece of content that we put out is going to be there for the rest of the time. All the dumb crap that your grandparents did are lost in time. All the dumb stuff that you're saying on Facebook and Twitter is saved forever. And so for the people that are huckstering and pushing and prodding, you've got to really think about the legacy that you're leaving and the way you're going about things. And so I highly implore you to understand that people are now consuming more content on mobile devices than on desktops. So if you're not figuring out how to make your content and your engagement work on mobile, you're going to be left behind, just like the people that didn't understand that the internet was important and didn't build websites in the late 90s and early 2000s. Number two, that listening is the game. How about this for a Facebook post that none of you have ever posted? What can I do for you? How about a Facebook status update that just says, what can I do for you? A funny thing happens when you actually do that. People answer, and you start actually getting insights to the problems that your customer has, which also maps to the problems many of their customers have, or many of your customers have that didn't answer that question. So that's something to think about. Number two, if you're not setting up tons of search terms on your Twitter account, and by the way, I don't know if Twitter did this yesterday, but you can localize this stuff, right? We search people talking about wine within a 10-mile radius of our store. So if you're selling in a certain general area, you can set your terms of people saying things within a very general area. And number three, and most of all, storytelling. What is your value proposition? How are you different? And for a lot of you, you're thinking about how to arm your agents in the field. And what you need to think about is where's the Mendoza line for them to show their personality and bring their unique value prop while staying under control and running party lines and all the things I'm sure you're worried about that I've looked at extensively for different companies through the years. The biggest thing I'm worried about is leaving this conference and not fully pushing through my biggest concern, which is it hasn't even started. There's a gentleman in the audience wearing Google Glass, right? I'm like, he's a freaking robot. Look at him. He's a robot, right? I mean, this hasn't even started. This has not even started. And if you want to be relevant, and especially I look around, there's a lot of people here that are going to be doing business in 10 years. Do you know what 10 years from now looks like? There's no direct mail breaking through anybody. There's no Google AdWords breaking through anybody. There's going to be massive shifts. And so the only two things that are going to matter are things that always matter. Your actual relationship, which you have to start scaling by engaging online. And number two, actually bringing value. And right now, that's to me the biggest thing. How do you bring value through content? How do you put out stuff that actually educates your consumer? How are you making them better? How are you making them better? That's the game. If you make somebody's life better, they're going to start talking about that more and more and more. Nobody picked up the phone 7 years ago and called their friend and said, you know what? This Snickers bar I'm eating is delicious. Nobody did that. Nobody on earth picked up a phone 7 years ago, eating a Snickers bar, and decided to call somebody and tell them that it was delicious. But I think we all know, because we're all on Facebook, that's exactly what people now share. People tweet and Facebook and soon Vine and Pinterest and Instagram and whatever's coming next, they say their every thought. It's how we work. So they're going to be sharing their engagement with you or the things that you've done. And so the quicker you figure out how to actually bring them value and put them in a position to succeed and put them in a position to word of mouth the awareness around you, it's going to matter. We are living through the biggest culture shift of our time. And if we don't start actually caring about the long-term legacy of our relationships with our clients, we're going to lose. You all think you're doing it, but you're just not doing it enough. None of us are. Because we've just lived through the last 50 years of bad business. where it was bottom line, and it was math. My friends, this is my favorite statement I give at keynotes. As we go more Jetsons, the people in this room that understand how to act like the Flintstones are going to win. That's where we're going. As we go more tech savvy, all the shadows of our society are going away. And it's the people that are actually good and the people that are actually bringing value that are going to win. So please start putting out content that's good for them, not you. When you put out a tweet that says, retweet this, that's not good for them. That's you asking for them to build distribution for you. You're being selfish. When you retweet somebody that says something nice about you, you're freaking bragging. It's ugly. And so let's really think about what's going on in this marketplace. And more importantly, let's really understand its relevance. Because as I look around this room, all of you lived through the internet coming, and most of you poo-pooed it, and a lot of you left a lot of opportunity on the table and didn't get the most upside. Don't let it happen again. Thank you. How much time did I leave for Q&A? What do we got?
About 30 minutes.
Boom. I'll keep going if you guys are bashful, but I kind of went very theoretical, like rah-rah. I implore you to take advantage. I charge a crap load of money for my consulting. Take full advantage. Let's ask. I know that, listen, I've been doing this every day for 7.5 years. I know you may ask a Twitter 101 or a Facebook 101. Don't be bashful. Looking at what everybody's doing in this room, you all suck. So let's just
That's great.
Together and get all the questions out of the way.
Oh, man.
Yes. What's your name?
My name is Mary.
Mary, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a complete one-on-one question.
Please.
Beyond even Twitter and social.
Please.
Being a compliance officer.
Yes.
Not a media expert.
Yes.
How do I learn more about media and how to be a part of that world to better source and help my company?
That's awesome. That's a great question. So, as you know, I have alcoholic clients. Not alcoholic. Alcoholic clients. I have some alcoholic clients. I have alcohol brands. I have pharma clients, and I work with some financial institutions as well. It's very difficult to navigate. I don't want to humble brag here, but I've been very fortunate to be pulled into some meetings with the administration at the highest levels to talk about this stuff because they're putting you at a huge disadvantage. This room's at a very big disadvantage. That someone jumping into a Twitter, somebody posting something on your Facebook wall is called a claim. It gets very difficult. I think what you need to do is a couple things. And it's a really simple move. I think you go to Google Alerts, right? And you set alerts around a couple of keywords like compliance and media, right? Let it come to you. See, that's the funny part about the world we now live in, right? Information comes to you. You don't go to information. So I can make your life quite easy. Go to Google, set up Google Alerts. Have you ever done that for Google News? Just Google Alerts. Set up Google Alerts because you'll get articles and white papers sent to your inbox, and that's how you have to do it. Look for conferences that really focus on this. There's been 4 or 5 that I've been asked to speak at this year. I couldn't make any dates for it, but compliance and social media conferences are starting to pop up. And I would say that those are 2 very quick ways. The other thing you could do is literally go and search on Google compliance, media, Twitter, those 3 words in a row, because there's probably 4 to 5 people on Twitter right now that are compliance lawyers at Fortune 500s or within your industry that are tweeting about this subject matter. They're out there. It's a very big conversation. It's a tough thing to navigate through, right? Like a lot of what I want you to do to jump into conversations, I actually want you to jump into conversations that are, or at least your people in the field, to jump on both. By the way, let me just make this clarification, understanding who's in this room. I have an enormous heart for the humanization of logos. Let me explain. I am blown away by the way people are engaging with New York Life's logo, with Nike's logo, with Tropicana's logo. So there's 2 things you need to do. You can't just rely on the people in the field to do this. You have to build equity in the corporate logo to engage with people. They are engaging with it, so it works. So I think that those are the biggest things you should be doing. Yeah.
This side.
Hey, Dawn, what's your name?
Patty.
Patty, nice to meet you.
I just have a question for you personally.
Yes.
I imagine you have a financial planner at this point in your life.
I do.
How did you find him?
My financial planner happened 18 years ago, right? So pre-internet, and it was a customer of mine at Wine Library. So my dad was a classic immigrant, right? You know, came to this country with nothing. And, you know, by the time, my dad was only 41 when I was 19, right? And he had nothing in place. He didn't have anybody to recommend to me. He didn't even have life insurance, I think, at that point, with an actual pretty big business. But I was kind of a little more aware, like I wanted to have some of those things in place. And so I had 50 to 100 clients that, at the wine business that were in that field. One I felt extremely close with, and that was it. But it's completely irrelevant at some level to what I'm thinking about, because what's more interesting to me is how are my children going to pick theirs? Is it going to be strictly based on me recommending it? I think that still sticks, right? Like, you know, recommendation from your dad or mom is going to matter. That doesn't go away. I'm just saying that you can break that pattern in a way that you've never been able to before, right? And so there's also people that get it from their work establishments. I mean, you guys know the industry way better than I do, right? There's 3 to 4 patterns to the gateway of why people choose who they choose. What I'm most aware about right now is that this medium that I talk about can break that pattern. And so what that allows is for the hustlers in the room that are willing to put in the work to break that pattern, there's more upside than there used to be. The cold call that worked at some level within this industry has been replicated on social media, and it's converting dramatically better. Cold call match to social media engagement for the industries that still do it, or can, or like historic data, it's not even close. Right now, if you cold call somebody on Twitter, you are looked upon as a good person. Let me just say that one more time. That if you jump into a Twitter conversation and you don't act like a 19-year-old dude and try to close them on the first move, if you just do that part, you're like that one, that's my favorite. If you just have a little patience and don't jump into some conversation and say, hey, use my life insurance or talk to me, if you just have a little craft, if you just have a little romance and actually try to engage with them. And the other thing is for you to all map your interest graph. Think about the 3 to 4 things, or not maybe you again, because I know where you sit. This is something you want to train your people with. Think about the 3 to 4 things that they're passionate about. That's what they need to be doing online. Like if they're a big Alabama football fan, as an agent, they need to spend all their time talking to people on Twitter about Alabama football. And then when people are like, who is this person? Make sure that their link and their profile is going to their business. And that's how you win. It's giving a business card out of meeting somebody without doing it. It's golden. I mean, and I want to make sure I paint a very clear picture. This is what I did for my wine show. I went on Twitter in 2007, and for 15 hours a day, I searched Twitter for people that mentioned wine. And people would say things like going out tonight and having a red wine. I jump in and say, which one? Right? Not, hey, awesome, buy this one, right? Which one? Got it? Then they'd say, well, I don't know. And I'd be like, do you want a recommendation? Or they'd say, I don't know, but I see you do a wine thing. Or they'd go and look at my profile and it linked to my show. They'd click it, they'd go to my show, they'd start watching an episode. Half the people thought I was really annoying, the other people thought I was brilliant, and that was my audience, right? And so that's why I'm so obsessed with you being in the content game. Imagine you put out content that was valuable. Imagine you engaged with somebody on Twitter around a subject matter. Then they looked at your profile, they clicked it, and your video was actually good, or the infographic you made to educate somebody was good, or the blog post, or the audio, or whatever. All of a sudden you're sharing that. Now you've got that full circle. Yes, sir.
Hi, Gary. Thank you for the comment. I am a robot, I guess. So my name is John. I have a question for you. You have a very futuristic view of things. I like to get your thoughts on what wearable technology might do to change the game or maybe extend what we're doing already.
Yeah, I'm really obsessed with wearable technology, right? So Google Glass, what you're wearing it now is really incredible, right? Like the fact that I don't know if you were recording my talk or not is fascinating to me. The dynamics of what it's going to do to society when we all realize that we're on the record 24/7, 365. Because it's not going to just be wearable technology. That's obvious, you're wearing the glasses. But eventually everything's in play, right? Yeah. So there's so much happening. I think that's one of the biggest things. The fact that every person so I, my friend, I live my life as if I'm on the record 24 hours a day. That's the world I live in now. And very honestly, it's made me a better and more honest human being. And I'm being dead serious. It's not fun for me to say that out loud. I'd like to think I was a pretty good dude 10 years ago as well. But it is very obvious to me because of the way I know that Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr work and all those things, that I'm always on the record. Wearable technology takes that completely to the stratosphere. So I challenge the people in this room that are maybe keeping some information off the table or maybe going around certain things. It's going to force people to be dramatically, I mean, I didn't want to pan 71% of the wines that I had on my show. I didn't want to pan wines, had 100 cases of it downstairs, and I'm like, this is as thin as water, you're drunk buying, you know, an Aquafina. That wasn't fun for me, right? But what I knew was this, that if I went to a wine event and somebody came up to me and gave me a glass of wine and put it in my face and said, what do you think? And I said, this is disgusting, but on the show I said it was great, I was finished. Got it? And so I always lived my life that way. And so that's the biggest thing I think wearable technology will do, let's say, for this industry, right? You know, if we were in a real estate thing, it'd be totally different. Imagine people walking through an open house and having information on everything at their eye tip. Maybe forget it. So, and there's also a lot more going on with technology. Here's a weird one if you want to just have a laugh about where the world's going, as into like me telling you that it hasn't even started. I just saw smart pants. I'm looking at a startup right now.
Smart pants.
Your pants are smart. You know, we all think it's just our phone. Everything is going to be smart.
Yeah.
Everything. Smart pants.
I believe
Imagine this. Imagine putting on your pants in the morning and getting a text from your pants 5 minutes later. Hey, eat a salad, fat ass. But really, the dynamics are incredible. I work in the Fortune 500 CPG world, consumer packaged goods. Imagine smart refrigerators. Imagine your refrigerator actually understands that you buy Pepsi and that you put Pepsi in your refrigerator over and over, and that when it gets down to one Pepsi in the refrigerator, it reorders it for you and it's delivered to you. Like, who's that dangerous for? Let me explain who it's dangerous for. Whole Foods, Costco, Walmart, because that leads to a world where Pepsi will deliver it directly to you. The milkman's coming back. It is interesting, and I heard somebody say, you know why? It's back to the point that I made. As we go more Jetsons, we're going to act like the Flintstones. It's going to be more hand-to-hand combat on top of the layer of technology. And we're seeing it. How many of you are familiar with Uber, the iPhone app Uber? Raise your hands. How many of you are not? How many of you have never heard of that? Cool. Uber is an iPhone app that is a black car service. It's like your personal taxi. You press a button, and it comes and picks you up. It's in most major cities right now in the U.S. It's exploding, right? It's incredible, and it's just changing dynamics. It's changing. How many of you are familiar with Airbnb? Airbnb? Great. How many of you are not? Just, okay, for half of you that are not. Airbnb stands for Air, Bread, and Breakfast. You can actually list your home to rent or your apartment on this platform. It's eBay for your apartment or home. You go away for a month on work, your house is empty. It's a piece of equity, a valuable piece of equity that's not being used. If you're that kind of person that's okay with that, it's changing the world. It's hurting the hotel industry. It's hurting the people that run this place. We're living through the biggest culture shift of our time, and people are just not understanding the overall impact. And we need to figure out how to navigate through that. Yes, dear.
Hi, I'm Janie.
Nice to meet you.
So I wanted to ask you more about how what we do is not necessarily interesting and people don't want to talk about that.
Please.
As a brand or as a company, how do you go about finding out what they do want to know about you? Because I think some people don't, you know, kind of like people don't really know what they want. They also don't really know how to tell you what they want.
That's right. You know, I mean, it goes in a bunch of ways, right? Like, I mean, when you think about this industry, the amount of equity that this industry has rented for other things, whether it's cartoon characters or making up cartoon characters, things of that nature, we haven't built on, as an industry, on the actual product itself because it's not that interesting. Finding out what they're interested in, I think the most important thing for everybody in this room to do is to actually look at all the people that they got business from in 2013, 12, and 11, and understand who they are demographically and who they are, and then try to start understanding what their interests are and really attacking that interest graph. A lot of people talk about the social graph. I'm getting a little nerdy here, but the social graph is who are your friends and your family. Facebook won that game, it's why it's the biggest company. They mapped it, right? Facebook knows who your friends are. Facebook, do you want to get freaked? Here's my favorite. They don't talk a lot about it because they don't want to. Facebook is predicting divorce at a nutso level. Facebook analytically is predicting divorce right now at an incredible high rate. They just know because they know who you're talking to and how and what. It's just incredible what they know. But that's the social graph, right? Who are you friends with? Who do you talk to? What do you do? The interest graph is where I think you guys need to go after. Who's into fly fishing? Who are all the people that are into fly fishing? And if fly fishing maps to who you're trying to sell insurance to, you need to become an authority on fly fishing. That's my extreme view on it. Got it? I really believe that companies are going to be the media companies of the future. I really believe that. I really believe that. And I think the most vulnerable, wide open, fertile grounds for you to attack is local, which is why I brought up the high school football thing, right? Again, a lot of big organizations here, but if you're regional, if you're Southwest, if you're Northeast, there's things you could be doing. And so it's a brain twist as marketers in this room. I'm basically asking you all to become media companies, and that's not necessarily what people grew up as conversion marketers, sales marketers. Like, this is a new thing for me too. But, you know, I'm too scared to fight technology. So I'm adjusting. Hey, my friend.
Gary, thanks for your candor. Thanks for being crazy, you know.
You're welcome. What's your name?
I'm Tom from Atlanta.
Hey, Tom.
Question.
Yes.
I coach salespeople. The best people tell lots of stories. They tell success stories. They have a big heart. They serve in the community.
Yes.
How can we help them to sell success stories that are not self-aggrandizing? Your thoughts?
Let me give you a brain twist. What if they told stories of success that didn't come from your company? So, like, that's a twist, right, Tom? I just saw your face. It didn't go that well. But listen, Tom, you know what? The reason I can say that to you is I'm as much a salesperson as, like, I was very embarrassed to tell you what my first actual business is, but we're all now getting cozy, so I'll tell you. My first job wasn't lemonade stands. When I first moved to Edison, I spent about 3 months, because we moved in the summer, going to people's yards and ripping their flowers out of their yard and then ringing their doorbell and selling it back to them. And I want you to understand that, because that's the seed that this human being comes from. So when I tell you to go tell, if you want to tell success stories, let's say a blog of success stories, how do you want to make it authentic and not self-serving? Then tell success stories across the board. It seems nuts. I get it. I'm blown away that I'm saying it. I wish that technology was in a place where the 25-year-old me was sitting in this crowd listening to 37-year-old me, because when I just said that, he would have taken his paper and threw it at me, right? But the truth is, that's what I believe. I believe that one of the best ways for you to gain credibility around success stories is not to make them just self-serving. So you got to be strategic. And you may not want to talk about the #1 competitor's success story that you have because you're actually fighting around the same business. Maybe you want to talk about somebody who's going out there with a different demo, maybe somebody who's small and up and coming. You've got to be strategic about it. It's a real brain twist, but this is the world we're living in. I mean, it just works. Most of my success of people that actually follow me and converted buying my books and doing the things that I want them to do, a lot of them came from me putting out content that was self-deprecating or promoting something that wasn't mine. It's just difficult to wrap your head around. But what's weird is it's back to this Flintstones and Jetsons thing. The purity of how you can act is going to really matter, because the shadows of our society are being taken away by technology. That is a massive statement that everybody needs to understand, because for us salespeople, man, when I was 17, I would bullshit about wine like it would make your head spin. I would have told you anything you wanted to hear, right? Like, whatever came out of my mouth to sell that bottle of wine. It just doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't work anymore. It has to be about giving, building enough equity, and then guilting people into buying your stuff. And I know it sounds funny, but that's the conversion. Because there's no other option, because there's so much competition. It's a simple game of supply and demand. There's more supply now than demand across the board, because the platform of the internet has given people dramatically more options. So now it's about who provides value. And you can provide value in a lot of ways. It might be informational, it might be emotional, but you've got to figure it out. So to answer your question of how to do it, mapped on the internet, that's how. It's just tough to wrap your head around.
I appreciate your commitment to integrity.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Hey Gary, it's Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl. Thanks again for talking to me on my way up here this morning. Cheryl and I were talking at 5 in the morning on Twitter.
Yeah. My question is, I don't work in insurance, I'm an intermediary, so I help share some of these wares that they create out there. And I guess my question is how much time do they have to catch up? Because there's a lot of paralysis in the room. And I'm going to.
Unlimited. That's the best part of technology. For what's bad about it, it's what's awesome about it. You might have sucked at Facebook and Twitter, but if you're the best at Vine and Pinterest, you're going to get all the accolades and all the upside and all the press. And that's what's great about it, right? It's never too late to jump in because there's always new platforms that are gaining steam. I mean, I don't know your business. And so I have no idea how much the female in most scenarios is making the decision, right? I'm going to assume plenty, but I have no idea. You know better than I do.